Howdy y'all. I'm not sure what the point is me filming this, except so many folks have looked at these last few bass boat videos on my old boat that I'm trying to make into something I can afford to use, and it's just amazing. I thank y'all for your support. So I'm going to show some how-to stuff. I used to do this for a living. Sold boats, rigged boats, started rigging boats in 1987, so we're going to make an attempt to do it without the proper 100% proper tools. Be right back. I'm doing this old school. What we got is a mess, of course. I got my new graph in, a Garmin 7-inch graph. We're going to mount it on the console. And I've already kind of checked it out to make sure I got room. Truthfully, I don't know if I get a 10-inch graph up there with existing windshields. So everything's filthy and dirty right now. I'll get all cleaned up before I'm done. But I pulled the windshield off. Checked out all my alignment stuff. I'm going to have to drill a bigger hole here to run my power and my transducer cable through. You got to think about doing this in reverse, because you can't mount a graph and run stuff that way. Your transducer has to be started from the back of the boat, and that's a pain. These things are, bass boats are put together inside out. Okay, if you ever watch how these companies, there's all kinds of videos how companies build their boats. Inside out, it's not fair. They lay all that wire and stuff and they cap it all. It's kind of cheating. Well, no, it ain't. It's good until you got to rework them. Hopefully, I don't remember the rigging tube on this. If it's got a tube or if it's just a gunnel, it's open. A tube's pretty nice, except it can get pretty tight. A tube being some round hole you can fit things through. I don't know if it'll work that way. So what we've got here is it got me a roll from my trapping stuff. It's number 9 annealed wire. It's annealed. It means it's soft. It's been heat treated. It's also rusty. So I have ran a length of it to make sure I'm going to have plenty. Got the cat helping me, of course. That cat in this boat. This will bend some. I'm going to make it as straight as possible. It's hugely important to get it straight. So without explaining everything I do as I go and try to hold a camera and get upset, you're going to cuss before it's done. These older boats, it's a composite boat, but still going to have some stuff that's going to get in my arms, going to hurt me, going to itch. My plan is to run that wire, and you got to run from the console back first. I'm going to try it that way. So it's bending and laying underneath there and all that fun stuff for a short, fat guy. Run it to the other end of the boat. Put a hook in the end. Oh, about that long. A pretty tight, pretty small hook. I will then take my transducer cable and I'll wind through that, and I'll use black tape, electrical tape. Brand new roll right here. Tape it up good and snug and pretty and smooth and try to make it as streamlined as possible. So then I can attempt to pull that back forward through the other wiring that's in here, other harnesses, steering cables, all that crap it runs from the console to the back. We're going to try to get around that. I've had times it comes through slick. I've had times I fought. I've had times I had to get in, cut holes. I've done this way too much over the years, but it's been a while. I'm out of practice, so I'm not going to film every part of that unless I hit something interesting or a snag. I got a lot of stuff to get through, so we're going to try that. I'll let you know when I get that part done. And then before I get too far ahead of myself, when that is done, when I've got my transducer cable up here with the plug, and you got to be careful with this stuff, you can damage it. I'll leave it laying there. I will drill a bigger hole up here, which is going to be fun. I hate to think I have to take a sawzall to it. I don't know if I got a drill bit big enough. I got one somewhere big enough. It's going to be a mess. When I get that done, I will then also run my power supply up there. So I'll have the transducer and the power supply hanging out here and ready to go before I mount my gimbal to put the depth finder on. That makes sense. You got to get out there ahead of time. Make sure you got some slack, room to work around so everything's not pinched and tight. We don't need to be bending all these fine wires and stuff anymore. We have to. Matter of fact, after you bend them that first time, you shouldn't have to bend them and work them again. It's not conducive to making them last, in my experience. Really fine wiring. So, okay, I'm going to try to run this wire. Okay, one more time, I feel the need to explain myself. I have this wire way long. I don't think too long is going to bother me. I can always cut a little bit off, but it's way long. I mean, it sticks way out past the back boat. All I really have to come to is from the console to right here, wherever everything comes out. I ain't even looked at it yet. It don't matter. So I'm almost twice the wire I need. But being a needle, being that it flexes, I ought to be able to get up in there okay, I hope. The trick is not to put any big bends in it where it starts getting hung up. That's the plan. If you can get this stuff, and you only need it once in your life maybe, if you can get it vinyl coated, they sell it with a slick coating, it's even better yet. Is that it? Is that all? Here we go. Okay, not breathing too hard yet. What I have though, is I ran it from the back to the front. I have my wire here now. There it is. This way I'll be pulling it now from here, of course. The biggest issue that happened, and again, I want to reiterate, that means say over again, how careful you want to be. There's a lot of wires underneath there, a lot of stuff's too loose, not wired up. You need, everything needs to be in looms and pretty, it's not. And these old boats, a lot of new boats probably too. Make sure you don't knock a bunch of stuff loose. Next thing you know, you won't have aerators or your horn, whatever won't work. So be careful with it. I'm trying to be very careful. The problem is in the back. I can cheat it, but I'm going to try to make it better than that. Let me show you what the back looks like. What I've got here in the back, this boat has twin 30-gallon saddle tanks. They take up a lot of room. And the wiring harness for everything runs back and around right there. Goes underneath aerator fill lines, gas lines, everything else, and it is a solid chunk, and I could not get around the other side of it. Okay, well, here we are. Here's the other end of my wire. I'm good, right? I really don't want to run my transducer cable across top of that tank. If anything, because it's going to be ugly doing that. But what I'll do is I will get tied up, pull it forward, and see if I can get it to wrap around the other side, make it neater, whatever. I'll try that before I go too far with it. I just want it neat. I want it out of the way. I guess if I have to run right across top of this tank in the back, nobody will ever know it but me, though, right? Yeah. I got to say right now, too, maybe this is a good deal for video. This is a great two-person project. I'm by myself, and two people would definitely make this better. I also want to say another thing. I've been crawling up on top of this boat. I've been in and out of it already 4 times, because you never can do it there's no way to do it once or twice by yourself. I fully intend to be in and out of this boat about 10, 12 times before I get this done. It's just the way it is. Y'all, especially you guys like me, especially older guys, if you're trying to outfit a boat, make one work, do things like I'm doing, be careful. You fall out of one of these things, the best thing that happen, you just fall and hit the ground. The worst thing is you hang body parts up on stuff, and y'all, it's expensive to replace body parts on us older guys. It ain't funny. Or gals. Ooh. Ouch. So, just be careful. This is really silly doing it by myself. I want to get it done. It's a beautiful day. Maybe do some fishing next week. So, next thing we're going to do is we're going to tie into this. Let's see if we can make this work. So, next thing, you really got to think these things out ahead of time, what you got to do. Because it's all inside out. We're going to run our cable to the front of the boat with a transducer out here on the back. We got to get that to the front and route it through everything we can. What we got here is we got a rigging harness, which actually was very nicely done. I don't know if it's the original. I bet you it was, because I just now cut this strip tie, which is very nice. I tried to get another one in there. It made it all nice and tight, because I couldn't get that plug through that hole without doing that. So I'll be running the plug through that hole, pull all the slack up that I possibly can and get laid up here real nice, so it's not going to tangle up or cause damage. Again, I'm going to handle this with care and bend it as little as possible. I think they're fairly bulletproof, but I just think in my experience it's so easy to break one. I've seen them brand new no good. So we'll run through this harness, through this rigging tube, get as much pulled up as possible to have just enough left to hang that transducer down on the bottom of the transom, to pin it up nice and neat down the back, down the jack plate probably, possibly, I haven't decided yet. And then I'll go ahead and get another strip tie and tie that all back together right away so I don't forget. That's a very nice way to rig, keeps everything from flopping around. Very good idea. think things through ahead of time, because these boats were built inside out, and we're having to build from the outside in now. Crawling back in the old boat again, and there's just too much of me and not enough room. I'm gonna have to just kind of flop over here at cleat. Those cleats are a horrible idea. Those cleats catch parts that I don't want to get hung up on. Get up in here and see if I can get a hold of this. Where's it at? Don't tell how much fun I'm having. Where'd it go? This is the way it works. It's got to be right there. There it is. I pushed through a little bit too much, probably. Okay, I got it. Okay, there's our plug. Again, carefully, I'm gonna pull a bunch of slack through. Most of it. I can always pull back to the way a little bit. Pull. Very careful, not making no big tight bends. I'm gonna do this until I feel that transducer, the weight of it coming up. They give you a lot of cable, which is a good thing. And I can't hardly breathe. I'm laying on it. That cleat's just almost, okay, my transducer's hanging. Oh, help me. Oh my God. Okay, gotta get my footing underneath me. Please give me footing. Oh gosh. Ouch. I missed. You know, I ain't a lot of step when the boat's just as wide as the trailer is. I survived, not bleeding or nothing. Oh, I got a little scrape, whatever. Safety tip number 26, don't be a squirrel like me, get help. Oh. And just for fun, and one of the reasons two people be better, this is what I've wound up with. I got a mess. I got through another cable. It's a transducer cable. For an old transducer, I don't think it's even there anymore. So that just needs to go away. I don't think that's one for the 1240. I have to find out. It's just what you do. It's just hanging there. No big deal. I just got to feed it back through. But that's just kind of message you end up with in these old boats. New boats too, but new boats generally most people have to work on like you do old boats. That's just a tangled mess. Simple part of it. Okay, what I've done at the end of this number 9 wire, and I said it's a needle that bends pretty easy. I put this loop in it. This loop makes it easier if you have to back it back out. You get up and get hung up. If you leave this straight, it'll poke through your tape, it'll stick you, you'll get hung up, and I've seen people break transducer cables trying to get unhung. I will wrap this around here, keep it all fairly straight, and I'll tape it up real tight, and I'll squeeze this in to give me a real smooth, the goal is to get a smooth transition. That's the goal, that's what we're going to try to do. Let's see if we can make this happen. Now I want to interject here, there's probably better ways to do this. There's probably been better ways made up over the years, maybe some new invention I don't know about. This way I grew up doing it. It's always worked for me if I take my time. So what I've done is I have that transducer cable slightly wrapped about one full circuit around. That gives me some gripping power instead of just taping straight. I put one piece of tape to hold it in place. I will run a bunch of tape from behind this hook all the way in front, especially in front of this because I got a bulge. Try to smooth that bulge out. That's the plan. It takes a bunch of tape to do that, to do it right. That's the plan. It'll be ugly when I'm done. If a bunch of tape comes off on the other end, hopefully it'll work. It's worked a lot of times in the past. Sometimes it don't work as easy as it should. So I hope y'all can see that. I probably use 3 foot of tape or better. I probably use 1.5 foot or better on that front, just trying to make that a smoother transition. Where my wires fold over, I got it tucked in, but I got extra there because it'll hang up. The trick is, if it goes through the first time, you're good. If it starts getting hung up, you start doing damage, you risk damaging that transducer cable. Now, I was just thinking to myself, how many people may just pay somebody else to do this? Which is fine and dandy. My whole point is, I'm not a rich man. I bought this used boat because of that. I'm going to do as much work as possible. And because the fact I've got education, I've done this for years, I did this for years, kind of a big help maybe. I'm not afraid of it. You shouldn't be either. It's not that hard. Slow, careful, think it out ahead of time. We're going to go up front and see how this pulls through. This is definitely where 2 people would be a big help. But I'm by myself, at least for now. If I get hung up too much, I'll wait and I'll have my wife or somebody help me later. I'm not so stuck up that I think I can do this all by myself every time. But right now, we're going to hopefully get up there and get lucky and pull it through the first time. Then I'll worry about routing it back through here and decide what I'm going to do if I can do anything. Hope it's all making sense to y'all. And the first part of that, by the way, is making sure it gets started immediately. You'll get back up there. I mean, it's only 4 foot away, but you'll get back up there underneath the console, start pulling, you'll be stuck right off the bat. So my wire's going to get hung up there. I'm going to pull a little bit through. I'm going to try to make sure I get into my, make sure I can get into that cavity, into that rigging tube before I get too much further along. So I'll come up here and pull a little slack out. I've never been able to pull one out, pull one through from the outside of the boat. I've always had to get into the boat. Like I'm going to have to get in right now for a minute. Okay, so I think I've got it into the rigging tube. I'm going to pull some slack up here because this aerator line is catching this something fierce. Again, I'm trying to leave this all loose and slack. I'm going to try to get in front of that aerator line so I can pull it through gentle. Try one more time before I get back underneath the console and crawl underneath there. See if I can jump back up in the boat again. A lot of climbing. And that's why this number 9 wire, being that you can bend it, makes it a lot easier. If it's a piece of stiff wire, it's just so tricky to use. I can't even find it. I can see it, but I can't find it. So, okay, there we go. Give it a little tug, see if it starts to come. It started to come, so that's probably good enough. It started coming my way. I'm going to get that console and knock on composite fiberglass that comes through the first time. Wouldn't that just be cool? Just a couple more thoughts I just had as I got into this boat before I crawl underneath here and start pulling on that thing. First off, how filthy this boat's got. I've been in and out of it about 5 times in the last week and a half since I used it last. I'm tracking grass in. My wife's got a couple cats that have taken residence in it. It's filthy. The main thing I was thinking, whenever you're crawling out of these boats, it's like I was talking about the back a minute ago, you got to be careful. Falling down obviously is the worst. But the second worst thing is kicking stuff. That switch panel, very easily drag your feet across things like that. These old boats have old-fashioned switches. They don't just have buttons. Just be careful because you do work. You try to make improvements in something, and you break $100 worth of stuff doing it. That ain't good either. So if that makes any sense, just watch where you put your feet every time, especially if you're an older, fat guy like me. Okay, it's coming through just as good as one can come through. I think these Tiecraft had real good rigging tubes. It seemed like to me there's a 4-inch diameter. Well, there's my tape already. Oh, look at that. Okay, I'm at the end. I've got my tape in my hand. That's excellent. But don't screw up here and start yanking because you're right here under all these wire and all these harnesses. So go gentle right here. I'm going to put the camera down and go gentle. I'm not being a very good cinematographer. I get that. The sun's wrong, but this is about me getting this done, not about making a video. So the second I said be careful about getting hung up, it got hung up. I went back and sure enough, it just coiled up underneath that lid. It was just snug. I went loosened the loops back up, fed myself some slack, took my time. And I'm sitting here at the console, seriously, 5 or 6 minutes after I tied this off and we got it in our hands. I'm going to tie that mess, leave it lay for now. This hole's got to be made bigger. When it's all routed through here with my gimbal bracket in place, I will then get the strip ties out and I'll try to take all these wires and tie them up out of the way where they're not going to get hung up on your feet or anything, get broken. And then I'll probably leave whatever slack there is back in the back instead of up here. If I can tie it up in the back to the side of that fuel tank, I'll be a lot better off than being up here where, again, you can get hung on yourself. You make one wrong step, you rip half your wiring out of the boat. So that went extremely well. Kind of amazing. So I'm getting this untied and getting it off, and it's got a mess, and it's so tempting to cut that off. All the years I've done this, the mistakes I've seen made myself, I'm telling you, that does not get used. You figure it out by hand. Trust me. You don't want to cut that cable or cut a wire. No. Make sure you do it by hand. So that's what I got left. There's my transducer cable on the console. All good. It took longer to unwrap that than it did to tie it up and pull it to the front to start with. So that's a win. I think that's enough for this video. I think that's good. Thanks for watching, y'all. I mean, I think people are going to appreciate this. that have to do these kind of things. If you actually like bass fishing, why you be watching this channel? If you don't, I have a bunch of bass fishing stuff that I haven't been able to transfer to this channel. There's some on this channel. I got a bunch more on my Hickbilly Outdoors YouTube channel. I'd like to get them transferred over, but Windows 11 won't let me. That's what they tell me. Whatever. I'll get this put on this afternoon. I'll keep filming. We'll make that the next video, plus some other things I got to do to this critter. God bless y'all. Thank you. I'm Dale Verts. I do this old school and poor school.